On the night I turned 30, my family lit candles across town, but none were for me. The sound of my heels echoed against the marble floor of my apartment building's lobby as I dragged myself in after yet another 14-hour day. The glass walls caught the city's reflection, Seattle's skyline glowing outside, like a reminder that life was moving on, with or without me. I had just finished presenting a campaign for Horizon PR, the firm where I've spent most of my 20s proving myself. The client had nearly hugged me, and our CEO told me I'd earned every bit of the bonus that hit my inbox that afternoon. It was the kind of recognition I'd been starving for my whole life. And yet, riding the elevator up to my apartment, staring at the black screen of my phone, all I saw was 0 missed calls, 0 new texts, not even a happy birthday from my parents in Bellevue, not even a lazy emoji from my brother Ethan, the golden sun who has always eclipsed me. My name is Ava Carter. I am 30 years old, a senior strategist in public relations, and I have built my career client by client, campaign by campaign. I negotiate with CEOs, I manage million-dollar disasters, and I keep entire brands from burning down. People in my office trust me. They celebrate me. But in my own family, I have always been invisible. I try to tell myself I don't need them. Birthdays are for children, right? Adults don't need balloons and candles. Still, when I open my apartment door and see the little cake I bought myself that morning, 3 layers of vanilla with buttercream, sitting on my coffee table like a lonely promise, my chest tightens. One single candle waits, untouched. I should feel proud today. Instead, I feel ridiculous. I sink onto the sofa, kicking off my heels, whispering, "Happy birthday to me," into an empty room. The silence presses down harder than the long hours at work ever do. Out of habit, I open my laptop, intending to polish tomorrow's presentation. But instead, my fingers betray me and click open Facebook. The screen lights up and my heart stops. The first photo in my feed is of Ethan. He's standing in the center of a crowded room, champagne glass raised high. Behind him hangs a giant banner. "Congratulations on your promotion, Ethan." My father is beside him, hand on his shoulder, pride radiating like a spotlight. My mother beams on his other side, her pearls catching the light. The timestamp says 6 p.m., 4 hours ago, right when I was sitting alone, staring at my unlit candle. I scroll, photo after photo, my aunts, my cousins, people who haven't called me in years, all gathered around my brother. Toasts, laughter, clinking glasses, Dad's caption, "So proud of our son," carrying the Carter name forward. Mom's comment, "Family always comes together for milestones." Always? I whispered to the empty room. Always, except when it's me. And then the old memories crashed in. My 11th birthday, sitting alone at a Chia restaurant table while my cake melted, because they were at Ethan's debate. My 17th, they shipped me off to Grandma's so they could tour Yale with him. My college graduation, I stood with honors. But the night was hijacked by Ethan's engagement announcement. I almost closed the laptop, but something in one photo snagged my breath. On the banquet table, right behind Ethan's cake, sat a tall bouquet of white lilies and pale roses wrapped in silver paper. My eyes narrowed. I knew that bouquet. I had ordered it myself that morning. It was supposed to be waiting at my apartment when I got home. My gift to me. Instead, it stood proudly in their photos, decorating Ethan's celebration. If you are watching this, drop a comment telling me where you are from. Hit subscribe and stay tuned to hear how I finally stood up for myself after years of being the forgotten daughter. I truly want to know how far my story will travel across the world, and who out there might understand what it feels like to be erased by the very people meant to love you. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds, painting stripes across my bedroom wall. I reached for my phone before I even got out of bed. 30 years old, day one of a brand new decade, and still not a single message from my family. Just work emails, just noise. Then I saw it, a notification I wasn't supposed to receive, a group chat. The Carter family. My mother must have slipped and added me back by mistake. For a moment, I hovered, debating whether to open it. Some part of me still longed to be included. Some part of me still wanted to believe they remembered. I tapped. The screen filled with messages, threads upon threads, laughter translated into text bubbles. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd realized they'd hurt me. Maybe this was an apology. But then I saw my father's words. The event space downtown will cost $35,000. Ava should cover it. She just got that payout. Time she supports the family. My breath caught. $35,000. My bonus and equity check. The reward for years of late nights and relentless work had instantly become their target. My success wasn't mine. It was theirs to divide. Mom's reply was worse. Yes, Ava can handle it. She owes us. It's her turn. Ava, not Ava. My own mother couldn't even spell my name correctly in the family chat. My chest tightened, my pulse pounding. 3 decades, and I was still a typo in their story. I scrolled further, each new message slicing deeper. My uncle joked, "Guess we finally found the family ATM." Cousins threw in champagne emojis. Ethan himself didn't correct them. He just wrote, "Thanks, sis. I knew you'd come through." I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened my banking app, needing to see the payout again, needing to remind myself that money was mine. But as I scrolled through older transactions, something caught my eye. A transfer from my account, $12,000, to Grandma's name, almost 3 years ago. I remembered that night. She had called me in tears, whispering that her medication cost too much, that she didn't want to burden anyone. I wired the money immediately, happy to help the only person who had ever made me feel wanted. But then, right beneath that line, another transaction, a withdrawal for the exact same amount. The name on it stopped me cold. Claudia Carter, my mother. She had taken the money I gave to Grandma, money meant to keep her alive, and used it for Ethan. For what? Another one of his big business opportunities? A car payment. I pressed my palm against my mouth, shaking. It wasn't just neglect anymore. It was betrayal, in black and white. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Mom, this time directly to me. "Sweetheart, can we count on you for the anniversary? It would mean so much to Ethan. Everyone is expecting you to step up." My fingers hovered. For years, I would have typed, "Of course." For years, I would have swallowed my pride and handed over everything just to feel like I mattered. Not anymore. I typed 3 words, "I'll handle it," and I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. What I was about to handle had nothing to do with money. The Carter mansion in Bellevue always felt less like a home and more like a museum. Every surface polished, every painting positioned at the perfect angle, every room designed for guests, not for living. Walking up those stone steps that Saturday evening, I felt like I was heading into court, not dinner. My heels clicked against the tile. But this time, instead of pride, the sound echoed like a countdown. Inside, the scene unfolded exactly as I expected. My mother, Claudia, fussed with orchids in a silver vase. My father, Richard, swirled a glass of bourbon, the scent sharp and smoky in the air. Ethan lounged on the leather sofa, his arm draped casually around Jessica, his perfect smile practiced for the world. I slid into my seat at the table, opposite my brother. The fine china gleamed, candles flickered, the roast filled the air. It should have felt warm. Instead, it felt like stage lighting on a play I no longer wanted to perform in. We made it through appetizers, through Dad's monologue about Ethan's promotion and Mom's rehearsed laughs. I stayed quiet, pushing asparagus around my plate. Then, just as dessert arrived, Dad set down his glass with deliberate weight. "Ava," he said, his voice booming like a gavel. "We need to discuss your contribution for Ethan and Jessica's anniversary. $35,000 will cover the venue and catering." There it was, the number, the same one from the group chat I was never meant to see. My fork stilled midair. "I can't," I said quietly. For a moment, silence stretched across the table, like ice. My father blinked, as if the word no was a foreign language. "I beg your pardon? I said I can't contribute $35,000. That money was my payout. I have other plans for it." His jaw tightened. Other plans? What plans could be more important than family? My chest ached, but my voice steadied. "Maybe keeping promises. Do you remember when Grandma called me 3 years ago, terrified she couldn't afford her medication? I wired her $12,000 that same night. The next morning, it was gone, because you and Mom withdrew it for Ethan. I saw the record Mom froze, pearls dangling at her collarbone." Ethan's eyes flicked away, suddenly fascinated with the rim of his glass. Dad's face flushed, but not with shame, with anger. "You're dredging up old nonsense," he snapped. "We did what was necessary. Ethan had a crucial opportunity. And your contacts." He stopped, realizing what he had said. "My contacts?" I asked. He sighed, lowering his gaze for the first time. "Regentech, the partnership. I may have mentioned your name. It opened the door for Ethan's firm. You should be proud your work benefits your brother." The words hit harder than the money request. My career, the one place I carved out for myself, had been used behind my back to prop him up. He hadn't even asked. "You stole my money. You stole my reputation. And you want $35,000 more?" My voice was no longer quiet. It was sharp, slicing through the thick air. "Family supports family," Mom whispered, eyes wide. But even she sounded unsure now. I pushed back my chair, the scrape of wood against marble making everyone flinch. My heart pounded, but I wasn't shaking. I reached into my bag, fingers brushing the cool metal of a small USB drive. I closed my hand around it, rose to my feet, and said evenly, "You think I came here empty-handed?" Their eyes followed me as I slipped the drive back into my purse, a promise tucked in silver. They didn't know it yet, but the evidence had already been collected, and tonight, the trial had just begun. The following weekend, I drove east, away from the skyline that had been both my battlefield and my refuge. Seattle's gray drizzle faded into open skies, then into the jagged ridges of the Cascades. 3.5 hours later, the road curved, and suddenly Lake Chelan appeared like a sheet of glass stretched between mountains, sunlight scattering across its surface. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders dropped. The air was sharp, pine-scented, and free. The realtor was waiting at the cabin. 4 bedrooms, cedar siding, a wide deck that seemed to spill into the lake itself. I walked through each room, the stone fireplace, the open kitchen with its skylight, the loft upstairs where sunlight pooled in golden squares. Every corner whispered possibility. "This place has been on the market for a while," the realtor explained, flipping through her clipboard. The sellers already moved to Arizona. They're motivated, which is why the price came down to $385,000. With your payout and savings, plus the pre-approved mortgage, you could close in 30 days. I ran my fingers across the wooden banister, heart pounding. For once, the numbers added up in my favor. My career had given me enough to stand on my own. I didn't need to beg anyone for a seat at their table. "I'll take it," I said, before I even realized the words had left my mouth. The realtor blinked, surprised. "No inspection contingency?" "I know what I want," I answered. My voice didn't waver. It felt like the first time I'd made a decision with no thought of how my family might react. Later, as we reviewed the contract, I noticed a clause I'd never seen before. An NDA. Non-disclosure agreement? I asked. "Yes," she nodded. "The sellers are minor public figures. They requested privacy about the sale. It prevents details about the purchase price or buyer from being shared publicly." A slow, almost dangerous smile spread across my lips. An invisible shield. Even if my family tried to dig, even if they hired someone to sniff around, they would find nothing. My sanctuary would be untouchable. Driving back that night, the thought settled into me. This cabin wasn't just real estate. It was armor. Every mile between Bellevue and Lake Chelan was distance between me and their manipulation. When I got home, I lit the single candle on the forgotten cake still sitting on my table. I didn't make a wish this time. I didn't need to. I blew it out, packed my things into cardboard boxes, and stacked them neatly by the door. By Sunday afternoon, I stood barefoot on the new cedar deck, phone in one hand, glass of Pinot Noir in the other. The lake shimmered endless and calm, a mirror that reflected only me. I snapped a photo. The water, the cabin, my silhouette in the fading light. For a moment, my thumb hesitated over the post button. Then I remembered the group chat, the jokes, the wrong name, the stolen money. I pressed share without a second thought. When the people who should have clapped for your smallest wins go silent, what sound do you choose to live by instead? I set the phone on the railing, the notification ding following seconds later. Then, 3 knocks at the door. Firm, familiar. I turned, heart hammering. Standing at the threshold of my new sanctuary was Ethan. Ethan stood on my new porch like he didn't know if he belonged there. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The lake wind tugged at his jacket, carrying the smell of pine and cold water between us. I thought of every time I'd sat in a corner at one of his celebrations, smiling until my cheeks hurt, pretending not to notice the way my name was never mentioned. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Can we talk?" I gestured toward the deck chairs. He sat stiffly, resting his elbows on his knees, like a man about to confess something he'd practiced all the way from Bellevue. "I need your help," he said. "There's a deal with a biotech investor. It's huge. If it falls through, I lose everything. But you know people at Pacifica Labs. You could make one call, just one. Introduce me." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course, one call. Like the last 3 times you used my contacts without asking. The ones Dad bragged about." His face flushed, but he pushed forward. "This is different, Ava. If I don't land this, I'm out. Do you understand? Out. My partners are ready to replace me." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "And why is that my responsibility?" "Because you're my sister." His voice cracked with desperation. "Because family helps each other." The words stung. The exact script I'd heard from my parents. I thought of the cake with the single candle, the bouquet stolen from me, the $12,000 siphoned from Grandma's account. Family helps each other unless the family is me. I won't do it, I said, my tone sharp as glass. I won't be your safety net anymore. The words hung between us like a verdict. For a second, he just stared, disbelief flickering across his features. Then came the twist I didn't expect. You don't get it, he whispered. Mom's been drowning. The neighbors keep asking about me, about the promotion, about why you bought that house. Everyone thinks she's lost control of her family. If I fail now, they'll all blame you. They'll say you ruined me. There it was, not just pressure, but a weapon. My refusal wasn't only betrayal in his eyes. It was ammunition for my parents to reload against me. I stood, heart pounding, the lake sparkling behind me. Then let them talk, I said. Let them blame me, because I'd rather be their villain than keep being their victim. Ethan's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the edge of the chair, as if he wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. His eyes burned with something between anger and shame. For a fleeting second, I thought he might finally see me. Then he looked away, staring out at the water as though the lake could give him answers I never would. I walked inside, leaving him on the deck. My phone buzzed on the counter. A new email. I swiped it open, expecting another demand from Mom. It wasn't her. It was from Greg Whitman, my CEO. Ava, your handling of the Westridge crisis showed integrity and brilliance. The board and I agree. You've earned this. Effective next month, we're promoting you to Vice President of Strategic Communications. My breath caught, the words glowing on the screen. Recognition, again. Not because of my family's name, not because I handed over my contacts, but because I stood firm when it mattered. I looked back at the porch. Ethan was still there, shoulders slumped, head in his hands. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Mom. Subject line, emergency family meeting. Sunday night I drove back across the bridge to Bellevue, but not as the daughter desperate for a seat at their table. My trunk held 3 leather-bound albums and a small silver USB drive, stacked like evidence in a trial brief. As I pulled up to the mansion, the granite steps rose before me, lit by lanterns that made the house glow like a courthouse, waiting for its verdict. When I rang the doorbell, my father opened the heavy oak door. 6'2", posture rigid, suit pressed to perfection even on a Sunday. His eyes swept over the albums in my arms, lingering on the USB before he turned sharply. "You're late," he muttered, already walking inside. No hug, no smile, just judgment. The dining room looked like a set from a magazine. White tablecloth, crystal glasses, flickering candles. My mother sat at the far end, her pearls gleaming, a tissue already clutched in her hand. Miles lounged with his wine glass, trying for relaxed confidence, but his eyes darted toward me like he was bracing for impact. We skipped small talk. My father's voice cut through the clink of silverware. "Ava, this family has always sacrificed for each other. That's why it's only fair you cover $35,000 for Ethan's anniversary. It's your responsibility as part of this family." I placed my napkin down carefully. "You want to talk about responsibility?" I said. "Then let's talk." I rose, carried the first album to the center of the table, and flipped it open. Page after page of Ethan's birthdays. 6, 12, 21. Cakes as tall as him, balloons filling entire rooms, professional photographs capturing every smile. "Turn to page 18, I told him. His hand trembled slightly as he obeyed. There he was, standing beside a brand new car, a ribbon stretched across the hood. My father's grin wide, my mother's tears genuine. Then I slid the second album forward. This one was mine. Claudia reached for it, her fingers shaking. She opened the cover. Blank pages. a couple of snapshots taped in crooked lines, me alone with a grocery store cupcake, a candle leaning sideways, me and Grandma at her kitchen table. That was all. There was nothing to put in it, I said, my voice steady, because every year you were busy celebrating him. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. My father's jaw flexed, but before he could speak, I pulled out the USB and slid it across the table. Jennifer had helped me compile the files, old bank records, photos, even digital copies of Grandma's letters, thanking me for money she never received. I tapped a key, and the screen on the dining room wall flickered to life. Rows of highlighted numbers filled the projection. College tuition, Ethan, fully paid, me, partial loans, cars, Ethan, tens of thousands, me, a used hatchback I bought myself, trips, Europe, Disney, New York, every column stacked under Ethan's name. Under mine, blank spaces or tiny figures that looked like afterthoughts. My father's face darkened, but I wasn't finished. I clicked again, and an old family photo appeared. A Christmas morning shot. Everyone clustered around the tree, wrapping paper flying. Ethan, laughing in the center. Me, except I wasn't there. Look closely, I said. I walked closer to the screen and pointed. You cropped me out. That's my arm right there, holding the box. You cut me out so the picture would be perfect. The room went silent, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. My mother's face drained of color. Finally, she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It was my idea." But her eyes slid sideways. Not at me, at him, at my father. My father's chair scraped back across the hardwood with a sound that split the room in two. He rose, towering over us all, his glass forgotten on the table. His voice was steady but cold, the same tone he used when lecturing Ethan about stocks or reminding me of my place. This family has always had one mission, he said, eyes fixed on me. The Carter name, the Carter legacy. Ethan is the one who carries that forward. Everything we've done, every choice we've made, has been to protect that. You should understand by now, my hands curled around the edge of the table. Protect the legacy by cutting me out of it, by taking what was mine and handing it to him. You exaggerate, he snapped. But if you care about peace, if you care about this family, sell that ridiculous cabin. Use the money to support your brother where he needs it most. Then we can move past all of this. Sell my sanctuary, the one place that finally felt like mine. My chest tightened, but not from fear this time. From fury, I stood, my chair tipping slightly before it landed back on its legs. You don't get to price my peace, I said, each word sharp as broken glass. You don't get to assign a dollar amount to my worth. Not anymore. The room held its breath. My mother dabbed at her eyes, but her mascara didn't smudge. Ethan shifted in his seat, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe, or shame. Then, slowly, he reached inside his jacket pocket and pulled out a white envelope. He slid it across the table toward me, the paper whispering against the linen. What is this? I asked. He didn't meet my eyes. I signed up for family therapy. For me. For Jessica and me. I can't undo what's happened, Ava. But I can stop repeating it. I thought, maybe if I start, the others will follow. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This was Ethan, the boy who grew up in the center of every picture. The man who had taken and taken without ever looking back. And here he was, offering something I had begged for in silence my entire life. Change. My father's face twisted in disbelief. Therapy? You don't need therapy. You need discipline. You need to focus on the firm. Ethan's jaw tightened. No, Dad. I need to stop being the son who pretends he doesn't see what you've done to her. The table shook with the force of my father's fist. Enough. But for once, the thunder in his voice didn't make me shrink. It just made me stand taller. I gathered my purse, the USB still tucked inside, and turned toward the door. "This isn't my court anymore," I said, "and you don't get to decide the sentence." Behind me, Mom whispered, "Ava, please." But I kept walking. In the foyer, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I glanced down. A new message from Mom. "Meet me tomorrow." Alone. No one else. I froze on the marble, the weight of it pressing down. For 30 years, she had only spoken. For the family. Never for herself. Now she wanted me, just me, and I had no idea what she planned to confess. The next evening, I drove alone to the small cafe Mom had chosen, halfway between Seattle and Bellevue. I almost turned the car around twice, my hands sweating on the steering wheel. Part of me expected another ambush, another performance with Dad and Ethan lurking in the background. But when I walked in, she was sitting by herself at a corner table, hands folded tightly around a paper bakery box. "Ava," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders hunched, makeup understated, as if she hadn't had the energy to perform. She slid the box across the table. "I wanted you to have this." Inside was a single cupcake, its frosting swirled neatly with a tiny candle in the center. White lilies and blush roses, arranged in a bouquet, rested beside it. My bouquet, the one I'd bought for myself, the one I saw on Ethan's table that night. "I took them," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You had flowers delivered for your birthday. I redirected them to the house. I thought they'd look better at the party. And the money for your grandmother. That was me too. Ethan needed it. And I told myself it was for the good of the family. But it wasn't fair. I stole from you. I knew it, and I did it anyway." Her confession hit harder than I expected. But then she whispered something else, something I never imagined I'd hear. "When I was a girl, I was the forgotten one. My parents only cared about my brothers. I swore I would never let that happen in my own family. And somehow, I did it to you. I don't even know how I became her." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The anger in me wrestled with something older, something softer. I had carried the weight of her choices for so long, never imagining she might be carrying her own scars too. "I can't fix the past," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks at last. "Real this time. But I can try to see you now, if you'll let me." I stared at the cupcake, the flowers, her trembling hands. Forgiveness wasn't a light switch. It wasn't something I could turn on because she finally decided to notice me. Still, hearing the truth mattered. For once, the silence between us wasn't dismissal. It was possibility. A week later, I celebrated my 31st birthday on the deck of my Lake Chelan cabin. The air was crisp, the water catching the last streaks of sunset. Jennifer popped open a bottle of sparkling rosé. My colleagues brought dishes they had cooked themselves. Mrs. Bennett arrived last, carrying a quilt stitched from blue and green scraps, pressing it into my arms with a smile that reached her eyes. For the first time, I felt celebrated, not for what I could give, but simply for existing. Later that night, Ethan showed up. He didn't bring balloons or fanfare, just himself and a quiet look. "I didn't call Pacifica," he said. "I closed the deal anyway. On my own, it stung. The thought that I could have helped and chose not to. Some part of me wondered if I'd been cruel, but another part knew he had stood on his own for the first time." I raised my glass, the stars scattering across the dark water. "Here's to peace," I whispered, If choosing yourself means someone finally learns to stand without you, is that cruelty or the beginning of respect? And here's what I know now. Real love doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't demand payment or silence or sacrifice in exchange for belonging. Forgiveness may take time, but boundaries come first, because only when you choose yourself can you make space for love to return, not as performance, but as something real.